Well, if there's one thing I could take away from today's games, today was certainly the day of the upsets. Also the day where not a single team actually won a game. But welcome back to the recap. It is day 5 of the World Cup. Not as much action probably as we saw the day before, but a lot of interesting things. As I alluded to, there was a lot of upset results today, and none bigger than the first game of the day between Spain and Cabo Verde. There are about 65 places separating these teams in the FIFA rankings. Spain obviously being the number 2 team in the world, coming off of a Euros win, one of the favorites, if not maybe the favorite to win this tournament. And Cabo Verde, the second smallest nation to ever make the World Cup. We obviously saw Curacao yesterday, how they fared against Germany. It obviously wasn't great. And knowing that, I think many people expected some kind of a similar result today where Spain, even without their full strength guys, obviously no Nico Williams or Lamine Yamal in the starting lineup, they were still expected to absolutely run through them just like they did to Costa Rica 4 years ago in their first World Cup game. This was not the case. This was the case of Spain kind of going back to their old ways. And what I mean by that is the fact that this is a team that passes and passes and passes without really putting much pressure on the opposition. To really stamp that point, look no further than Mikel Oyarzabal himself. Spain's starting striker did not get a single touch of the ball for the first 30 minutes of the game. Now, don't get me wrong, Spain had plenty of chances in this one. Even without them being full strength, I still think as far as creating those chances, I think they were fine. But again, without those key players in the starting lineup, it became a lot more harder to get those good opportunities. Look no further than Ferran Torres' chance. He has to put that away. There was a part of me that thought Ferran Torres could at least be somewhat of a defined stopgap until obviously those guys got back healthy. But from what we saw today, that was not the case. It took De La Fuente until later part of the second half to realize we should probably be sticking Lamine Yamal in this game. And he instantly came on and made a bigger impact than any of Spain's forwards did combined. That's what a player like him does. Even other subs that came on. Dani Olmo came on and was great. Even Mikel Merino and Nico Williams. That's the one thing that Spain is going for them is their depth guys. But at the same time, they have to nail a starting 11 that can actually make an impact throughout the game. Because, again, similar to what I said about Germany the other day, this is the easiest game that Spain are going to get in this tournament. Let's be honest. Saudi Arabia and Uruguay are going to be much bigger in steps up. Saudi Arabia is a team that actually has some attacking talent and can make you pay from that end, as well as being sharp defensively. And Uruguay is the same thing. They're a team that we saw today put a lot of pressure. So for Spain, you got to really nail things down. This was a game to really do that, and they didn't really get it. Again, I don't want to be too worried about them because, again, if you get a healthy Nico Williams, you get a healthy Lamine Yamal, I think that's where Spain's tournament can truly begin. But at the same time, you can't go back to your old ways of playing this sort of Enrique ball. Not to disrespect Luis Enrique, at least this version of Luis Enrique. I'm talking about the Luis Enrique that was managing Spain in the 2022 World Cup, where it was a similar thing where they passed and passed and passed, held the ball, held possession, but just couldn't get anything on net that was really worth threatening. So Spain definitely have some things to work out on going forward in this tournament. Although, to be honest, I don't think this is a scenario where we should be completely writing off Spain. On one hand, yes, it is bad. Them drawing to Cabo Verde, it's crazy. But at the same time, we know what this Spain team is capable of. It's normal for some big teams in World Cups to start off a little bit on the slower end. Look no further than Argentina in 2022 and Spain themselves in 2010. They lost their first game, went on to win the tournament. They were the first team to do that until obviously Argentina did it when they won it. Now, as for Cabo Verde, all I gotta say is well done. Considering what we saw from Curacao the other day against Germany, they came in with the right plan. Put everything at the back, play for the draw. And they absolutely did that to perfection. And look no further than their goalkeeper, Vizinha. He will 100% go down in World Cup folklore for his performance today and just his story in general. He's a 40-year-old goalkeeper playing in the second league of Portugal, making his World Cup debut, and he was absolutely sensational for them, making incredible saves. That diving save where he went up to put that one over the bar, sensational stuff. And obviously one of my favorite things to come out of this has been his growth. In one single day, this man has gained over 8 million followers. He's got more followers than the best player in the NBA. If there's any reason why to say that football is the best sport or the World Cup is the best tournament, this is why. You will never see any other sport have that, ever. Again, shout out to Vizinha. He is a genuine hero in this country. And who's to say what Cape Verde's potential is heading into the rest of the tournament? Who knows what kind of results that they can pull off from this point onward. They've already pulled off one of the biggest shocks in World Cup history, so who knows, maybe they could shock everyone and potentially get some more points off of Uruguay and Saudi Arabia. That Saudi Arabia game will be very, very interesting, considering the fact that both teams are in a position where feeling the need to go and attack, especially because this is a game where both teams would have to go out and win it. That's not obviously until the last game, but still, I'm very much looking forward to how that could play out if Cape Verde still hold on to pretty good results against Uruguay. And then for Spain, obviously this was disappointing for them. Even some of their fans in the crowd were booing because they felt like there was a point in that second half where nothing was going, and that pretty much forced De La Fuente's hand to bringing Lamine Yamal into the game. So obviously you want him to be inserted throughout the rest of this tournament. I think he is going to be, without a doubt, the key to unlocking the Spain team. Because again, without those guys, it feels a lot like the Spain teams in previous World Cups, where they have a great collection of players, but no real game changers that can go out and win games. That is what Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal did in the Euros, and they're going to need those two once again for this World Cup. Now into the second game of the day, we have Belgium against Egypt. First things first, we got to talk about that strike from Emam Ashur. That was absolutely insane. I already talked about the potential goal of the tournament from yesterday, Yasin Ayari of Sweden. However, this one is a big, big contender. I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it is to strike a ball like that without it touching the ground right into the bottom corner. That takes a lot of skill. And to do that against probably the best goalkeeper in the world in Thibaut Courtois, that is just incredible stuff from him. An incredible moment for Egypt to put them up 1-0. Mo Salah with the assist as well on his birthday. And overall, I was just impressed with how Egypt was in general. Egypt in the last couple of tournaments haven't really been themselves, but I feel like with how they played today, they could definitely make an impact on this group and probably get out of it, just as I predicted them to do. However, for Belgium, I know I didn't really rate them as far as going into this tournament, but even with that, I was still pretty disappointed with their performance. In particular, Jeremy Doku. Jeremy Doku to me has always been just an extremely enigmatic player. I feel like a lot of people rate him so highly, not because of what he produces, but the idea of him as a player. The idea of Jeremy Doku should be one of the best players in the world. He should be up there with the Lamine Yamals and Kvara's. Like, he should be on that level based on his technical ability, the pace that he has, and just his overall creativity as a winger that just goes out there, doesn't play it safe, always looks to take players on. But in this game, we really didn't see any of that from him. He obviously shined in qualifying for this team, but to me, he's just never been the kind of player that can go out and just single-handedly win a game. Again, he has the ability to do that, but he's never really shown that in his career. And I say all this to say that I personally think Jeremy Doku is one of the most overrated players in the world. And again, if Belgium are going to do anything in this World Cup, anything of any sense, Doku needs to be the guy that steps up for them. And I'm not too confident that that will be the case. The fact that this Belgium team is still relying on Romelu Lukaku in 2026 to have to come off the bench and step up for them is telling something. And I'm not saying this to disrespect Romelu Lukaku, because he did just that. He came on, instantly made the impact, and got in front of the net. Yes, it was an own goal, but I will give him credit for that. He got in that position. He forced the Egypt defenders to essentially pick their poison of either leaving Lukaku to tap the ball in or kind of try to do it themselves and hope that it doesn't go in and their keeper could do something, but that obviously wasn't the case. Belgium got their equalizer, and it remained 1-1 throughout the rest of the game. Again, I really enjoyed this match. This was very end-to-end stuff from both teams. And again, in a group that is wide open, points are going to be valuable, especially if you are Egypt. Yes, it's tough, obviously, for them being denied of what would have been their first ever World Cup win, but overall, the performance is nothing really to scoff at. Even the own goal itself is one where you kind of just have to take it on the chin, especially if you are Mohamed Haney, the one who tipped it in the net. Other than that, he played a really, really solid game at the back. And again, even with a draw, I would consider this to be another upset, with Egypt ranked 29th, tying against Belgium, who are still ranked top 10 in the world. Belgium even had a great qualifying campaign. They scored more goals than anyone. But obviously, Egypt were able to hold that down very, very well. And as both teams go on to their next matches, the group remains wide open. Obviously, everyone's still on 1 point. It's actually crazy how many groups so far in the early stages of this World Cup are all just tied on ones. We obviously have Canada's group, Spain's group, and now Belgium's group, all tied on 1. It is crazy. And speaking of Spain's group, let's talk about the other game in that one, Saudi Arabia against Uruguay. Now, on the topic of goalkeeper performances from earlier we had Vizinha. This one we had Mohamed Alouais. He was amazing as well, making 9 saves in this one, as Saudi Arabia kind of had a similar strategy in this one, getting that early goal, which they got from Al-Amri in the back. And for the rest of the game, they pretty much just defended with their lives. Uruguay were pretty much in control throughout the entire second half. And to me, I saw this game sort of playing out like the Bosnia-Canada game, where Uruguay being in control for most of the second half, chance after chance after chance. It finally felt like they're going to get at least one to go in, and that's exactly what they got. With Maxi Araujo getting that all-important goal to put Uruguay level. What's funny is that he scored, and then right away he got subbed off. So luckily for Uruguay, no stoppages happened before that, because otherwise he wouldn't have been on the pitch to score that. And again, I talked about this in the Netherlands-Japan game, talking about Japan, how they persisted, they never really gave up. Uruguay has that same vibe as well. I remember 2 World Cups ago, their first game, I believe it was against Egypt, it was a similar thing. They had chance after chance after chance. They just couldn't break through. Late in the game, they finally did. Oh, in this case, there was a lot more to lose since they were down 1-0 and they had to go and get at least one. And again, for Saudi Arabia, I said it before this tournament, they're a team that will step up and shock some people. And again, with this result, this puts them in a really great position. If they can get a similar result against Spain and then obviously Cape Verde at the end, they'll be in a position to easily qualify without maybe even having to rely on being a third-place team. And again, we talked about upsets. Saudi Arabia, 61st ranked in the world, drawing against Uruguay, who are ranked 16th. And again, like I said in my preview video, this is not the same Uruguay team that we've seen in previous World Cups. They're still obviously competitive, but even going back to the 22 World Cup, you really started to see that era of Uruguay being one of those sneaky teams that could do something start to come to an end. And unfortunately, I feel like that's probably the case this time around as well. But again, this group is playing out way different than I could have honestly expected. I expected things to be sort of normal with Spain going ahead and dominating, but that might not be the case. So we'll have to wait and see what next week brings. Obviously, Saudi Arabia, Spain. That is a big one. Spain got to get their mojo back. Saudi Arabia can maybe build on this. Hopefully, Alouais is still the dominant keeper that he is. If he can be any as good as what Vizinha was today, or if he was today, Spain could be in trouble again. And now on to easily the game of the day. I don't think anybody expected this to be the cracker that it was. Iran against New Zealand. See, these are the kind of games that you just love when it comes to the World Cup. Again, similar to what I said about South Korea and Czechia, you will never get another game like this in any other competition, really. That's so riveting between the two teams and two nations that couldn't be more different. And again, we're talking about upsets here. Iran, they're the 20th ranked team in the world against New Zealand. They're 85th. New Zealand also being one of the smallest nations in this World Cup. And obviously the main thing we got to talk about them is that duo of Elijah Just and Chris Wood. Now, Chris Wood was someone that I obviously saw being a key player for New Zealand when it came to his goal scoring. But I didn't know that he had the playmaking in him, especially in that first goal. I will say Iran's defense really had to have done better there. They gave Chris Wood way too much time and space, but fair play to the lad. He absolutely banged it with that assist, the chest touch, right to Just, who banged in the first goal for New Zealand. From there, Iran obviously were able to zone Ramin Rezaian, who put them level. And again, both teams had their cracks at each other. Iran's defense obviously held strong, apart from obviously that first goal. And then again, start of the second half, New Zealand did it again. Chris Wood to Elijah Just. Those two guys might also go down to World Cup folklore, especially if New Zealand go on to do something in this tournament, because man, those two were just so fun to watch throughout this one. But once again, Iran found that quick response, with Rezaian once again finding this time Mohamed Mohebi, heading that one in, back to 2-2. From there, I honestly thought we'd see maybe another 1 or 2 goals from either side, but they settled down from there. And Iran definitely had more of a chance to go on to win this one in the end, but New Zealand held firm. They get the 2-2 draw. And again, with how this group is starting to play out, good points for both teams, especially New Zealand. And unlike in 2010, where drawing 3 times wouldn't really get you anywhere, in this case, if they do manage to draw 3 times, that could probably be enough to put them through to the next round. So again, just brilliant stuff from New Zealand. They're a team that I definitely want to see do well in this World Cup. And again, what a day of underdogs this has been. Cape Verde and New Zealand really leading the way in that aspect. But also credit to Saudi Arabia and Egypt as well. Oh, and I forgot to say this for Uruguay. I wanted to say this earlier as well. Not a single South American nation has won at the World Cup. How is that possible? From Ecuador, Uruguay, Brazil, Paraguay, not a single South American nation has won a game, and we're only down to the last two now with Argentina and Colombia yet to play their games. Again, that's just one of many crazy stats and reasons why this World Cup is already shaping up to be absolutely insane. You would think that in most cases, and I mean, it kind of does tend to be like that in the end, but a lot of times in the beginning, we underestimate how unpredictable the World Cup could really be. Because every single tournament, even in an expanded format like this, there's always going to be big teams that falter in the early stages. Or in the case of Italy, they just don't make it at all. So again, nothing is ever set in stone. That's why it's always worth watching these games. You never know what you might see. But that is going to be it for this one, day 5 of the World Cup. We obviously have a big day ahead of us with the 2 finalists from 2022 getting their tournaments kicked off. Can't wait for those games. Maybe we might see more upsets in this one. Who knows? But either way, that's all for me. Thanks for watching once again. Subscribe for daily World Cup content. Thanks once again for all the support. And apologies for the last video going up so late. That's going to be all sorted out for the future. So yeah, keep enjoying this World Cup. I'm still having fun making these. And let's hope for another entertaining day at the World Cup. Let's play football.